Hey guys, look, normally I don't do finance videos. Maybe this will be the start of a new finance channel. But, as someone who is actually like a licensed financial professional, when I see something that someone's presenting and it's wrong, that can be really bad, especially when it's garnering a lot of attention. And so I felt the need to kind of explain this because I think the vast majority of people probably watch this video and don't really understand the math. And hopefully, because they don't understand the math, they're not actually going out and necessarily following what this person's saying to do. I don't think that she means any harm. Half of what she says is really good and insightful, but she's done a bit of a mistake here, which I think could be a bit of a problem for people if they were to actually follow this and listen to her advice. Which is, she's right that people don't really understand that when you get a mortgage for your house, you probably pay 2 or 3 times what the house is worth on a 30-year mortgage. This is the cost of being able to outright own and buy a house that you could not afford if you had to straight up buy it without a loan. And so the bank is obviously going to charge you money for that. The thing that I guess you could say is a bit deceptive is, or maybe people just don't understand the basic finance behind, is that when you get like a 7.75% interest rate mortgage or whatever the interest rate is, that's an annual interest rate. And so practically, if you're paying the mortgage for 30 years, you're going to end up paying a lot more than 7.75%. You could pay 50%, you could pay 100%, you could pay 150%, depending on, how long your mortgage is for. And although usually, obviously, they're going to be 30 years, and also depending on your interest rate. And so you might buy $100,000 house, and because you're paying these payments slowly over 30 years, and borrowing that money for 30 years, you're getting charged so much in interest that you're actually paying $200,000 or $300,000 for the house. I think most people know this, but maybe a lot of people don't. Either way, for people who don't know that, that's obviously good advice. So what is the remedy to this situation, right? Like, why is this such a bad thing? And what do you do if you want to fix this in your personal financial situation? Well, if you do have extra money, right, you potentially want to take that money and put it towards paying down your mortgage, because it feels really bad to pay 2 or 3 times the price for the house because you didn't have the money to buy it all up front. But almost nobody who gets a mortgage has the money to buy it all up front. Or even if you do, sometimes it can be worth it to get a mortgage because depending on the interest rate that you're paying for the mortgage, you could actually go and take that money and do something else with your money that's better. So for example, if you were investing in the stock market and earning 10% a year, or if you're investing in bonds and earning 4 or 5% a year, those things are going to outpace a 2% mortgage. And so there's really nothing wrong with having a 2% interest rate mortgage and choosing to do those other things with your savings instead of putting it towards paying down your mortgage. It actually just doesn't make sense to do that. There are people who advocate for just not ever having any debt and not, doing other things with your savings if you still have a mortgage payment. And I think that there's a lot of good arguments for that aren't like purely maximizing your finances mathematical based, right? Which is like, if it's your home, you don't want to be caught in a financial situation where, you get in financial trouble, you have to blow through your savings, and now you're in, a situation where you might not be able to pay off your mortgage. And so leaving that debt unpaid puts you in a less safe financial situation. And when it comes to your house, where your family's living, you don't really want to be in that situation at all. Obviously, you'd rather be secure in just having the thing paid off. And so there's a reason why a lot of people like, Dave Ramsey and those people would recommend just not having any debt and paying your debt off. But for people who understand debt, debt is a tool, leverage is a tool, right? It costs money to borrow money. And as long as you're, making more than, even at a 7% interest rate, like we said, as long as you're making more money than that somewhere else with your savings, it's not necessarily worth paying it down. But she's gone through this example, which is kind of wild, where you take a like a $10,000 line of credit and put it towards paying down your mortgage. And she says that, like, regardless of the interest rate, well, she does say that verbatim, but she doesn't mean like any interest rate. Obviously, if it was a crazy interest rate, like 100% on the line of credit, this wouldn't work. But basically what she's saying is that essentially, even if the interest rate is pretty high on the line of credit, it's not going to be that big of a deal, because essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take this $10,000 line of credit and you're going to put it towards your mortgage. So you're going to pay down that chunk of your mortgage all at once. And then that is going to have a very positive effect on your finances. And her math is just like flat out wrong. And it's pretty depressing, like I said, because you have 2 million people who have watched this, and the vast majority of people have watched this and obviously don't understand the math, so they've just liked the video and think it's really great, and it's really bad. So in her example, she's talking about taking out a 14% interest rate line of credit and using that to pay your mortgage. And now obviously, like with what we just talked about, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on the face of things, because if you're taking a any other loan, right, with a higher interest rate and using it to pay down another loan, that doesn't really make any sense, because you're going to be paying more interest on the new loan that you've taken out. It's like if you were to partially refinance your house at a 14% interest rate instead of a 7% interest rate, that doesn't really make any sense. So then she goes through some math, and I was following along, and I was having a hard time figuring out where she made a mistake, because, this whole line here is her showing that you have a $10,000 line of credit. In the example, these people have $5,200 a month in income and $4,100 a month in expenses. So they have a positive cash flow or money that they can save or put towards something of $1,100 a month. And because of that, they're going to take that $1,100 and use it to help pay down the line of credit. And so you can just see here that she's, they've got this debt here, and they're $10,000 in debt, but then they pay off $5,200 of it each month. But then they go another $4,100 deeper in the account because of their expenses that they have. They pay a little bit in interest every month. And here's what just wasn't adding up to me. She said that you'd pay the whole line of credit down in 6 months, and that the cash flow, would help with that. But if you look at the cash flow, you're thinking about, like, okay, we have $1,100. That's pretty darn close to $1,000. You'd need 10 months to pay this off if there was no interest at all, right? So I'm thinking, how can we get there in 6 months when, in order to pay the loan back, we're not going to make, we'd have $6,600. We don't have $10,000 to give the bank back after 6 months. So how can we pay the bank back? Well, the answer is we can't. But she kind of got confused mathematically here, because when she gets to the end, at month 6, she realizes that the amount left on the loan is less than your income. So she just marks the whole thing as paid off. But it's not, because you also have to pay for your expenses that month. And so if you add your expenses in for that month and the interest that you're still paying that month, you still have a positive balance, which of course you do, because you have to pay them their $10,000 back. And until you're getting to, 9-10 months with a cash flow of $1,100 a month, you're not going to get to pay them the $10,000 back. So no, you wouldn't be done paying them at 6 months. This isn't the only mistake that she made, though. Not only can you not pay the line of credit back in 6 months with only $1,100 a month on a $10,000 line of credit, but it also won't save you money on your mortgage the way that she thinks that it will, partially because of this mistake, but I'm not quite sure. So the issue is that she then suggests that because you're saving money on this, that you should go and do this over and over again. So like for your first 6 months, you take out this line of credit, you reduce your mortgage by $10,000. And then after you've paid it off, you go and you get another one and you repeat the process over and over again. Well, the problem is that in this scenario where we're repeating this process over and over again, you're essentially doing this the entire life of the mortgage, which means that you're actually just paying while you have these line of credits open, you're just paying 14% interest on this chunk of the mortgage permanently, like the entire time that you're working on the mortgage, which is higher than if you just left the $10,000 in the mortgage at 7.75%. So you would actually like not save money by doing this. The reason why it looks like you're saving money by doing this is because, again, what we're talking about doing is taking all of their extra cash flow and savings and funneling it into paying off the mortgage earlier, which is a positive thing. But because we're doing it through a line of credit, which has a higher interest rate than the mortgage, we're actually losing money. So these people would be much better off just taking their $1,100, paying an extra $1,100 a month towards their mortgage, finishing their mortgage much, much earlier, because instead of paying their actual told to them mortgage payment of what is it, $967.16 here on the left, instead of paying that, they're actually paying like $2,000 a month because they're putting all of their extra free cash flow into paying down their mortgage. So they're paying double on their mortgage, and as a result, for paying double on their mortgage, they're able to pay their mortgage down quicker, and so they don't end up owing the bank as much interest, and they finish paying off their mortgage in like 7 years, which is great. But you wouldn't actually want to do it through taking a line of credit at a higher interest rate than your mortgage, because you'd actually do it slower and lose more money than if you just took your savings and made a bigger payment towards your mortgage each month. So this is, a huge problem with this, frankly. The other thing is that, she said this was a real life example. Maybe it is. Obviously, cost of living is different in different areas of the country. But she said that they put 10% down on a $150,000 house. I mean, maybe I don't get it, but where in the United States are you finding a $150,000 house and allowed to only put 10% down on the mortgage? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me in the first place. So obviously this, sounds really nice because you're able to pay it off in 7 years. But let's say that you had a much bigger mortgage, for a reasonable amount, like for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. Now you're not going to get done with paying that in 7 years, because you probably don't have the income to afford to pay a mortgage that's $600,000 or $500,000 in 7 years. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I hate to rain on everybody's parade, but I cannot believe that nobody caught this. And then like you go into the comments and it's like, this is positive, this is positive, this is positive, or like doesn't comment on it. I mean, I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything. Her math is horribly flawed. There we go. Yeah, okay, this person got it. That you should put the $1,100 a month directly towards the mortgage versus taking a higher interest rate line of credit. So the thing that you have to keep in mind is it's all about the interest rates, right? Like if the line of credit was a lower interest rate, then sure. But also you could refinance at a lower interest rate as well. If interest rates had significantly gone down, you have to understand that a mortgage is always going to have a lower interest rate than some sort of personal line of credit, because a personal line of credit that you're allowed to spend on anything is a lot more risky to the bank than you spending it on a home where they know that you're more likely to be inclined to. First thing you're going to want to pay off is like your car payment, your mortgage payment. And they also have the house as collateral, whereas on like a line of credit for anything, and you're allowed to use it on anything, there's no limitation to what you can use. I'm just really shocked, I guess. I mean, I guess some people did get this. I'm just really surprised that the ratio, but I mean, I guess it shouldn't be surprising. I mean, she is right about one thing: people don't understand finance. So I hope that we can address some of these issues in future videos, but don't get caught up in something like this. This is a complete waste of money. So good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day.